Pakistan modern frigate, the PNS Turil or F261, has arrived in Manila for a 2-day goodwill visit.
And 9 months after the February 20 community event, COVID-19 in Cambodia has been brought under control and the country is fully reopening in almost all sectors of their society.
Months after the February.
And the Measurable Action for Haze-Free Southeast Asia is a joint initiative between the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or Asean Secretariat, and the International Fund for Agricultural Development.
First in our news, President Duterte is disgusted with the actuation of the Chinese Coast Guard vessels, which blocked and fired water cannons on 2 Philippine boats transporting supplies to military personnel in Ayungin or 2nd Thomas Shoal on November 16. During his attendance at the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or Asean China Special Summit via video conference on Monday, the President said the South China Sea issue is a strategic challenge that cannot be solved by force. Take a look.
We are friends and close neighbors. Our destinies are tied to each other, and geography has made it irrevocably so. Allow me then to speak with candor. The South China Sea is a strategic challenge that cannot be solved by force. We all want to benefit from the bounties of the vital maritime domain. We agree that peace and stability are a precondition for this to happen. And we all pledge adherence to the rule of law, including the 1982 United Nations Conventions on the Law of the Sea. Let us then walk our talk and move forward, acta non verba, which means deeds, not words. Let us exercise utmost restraint and avoid escalation of tension. And most importantly, let us earnestly work towards the peaceful resolution of disputes in accordance with international law. We abhor the recent event in the Ayungin Shoal and view with grave concern other similar development. This does not speak well of the relations between our nations and partnership. UNCLOS and the 2016 Arbitral Award provide legal clarity for all countries that subscribe to the majesty of the law. These 2 landmark documents are beacons pointing to us a just and fair solution of our disputes. We must realize these legal tools to ensure that South China Sea remains a sea of peace, stability, and prosperity.
The Ayungin Shoal is part of the Kalayaan Island Group, which is an integral part of the Philippines, as well as the Philippines' exclusive economic zone and continental shelf, and over which the Philippines has sovereignty, sovereign rights, and jurisdiction. It's located about 105 nautical miles off Palawan, Philippines, well within the country's 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. The Department of Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. earlier conveyed in the strongest terms to Chinese Ambassador Wang Shilian and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Beijing the Philippines' outrage, condemnation, and protests of the Ayungin Shoal incident. The renewed tensions over the South China Sea have drawn international concern. The U.S. on Friday warned China that an armed attack against Philippine public vessels would invite a U.S. response under its treaty obligations to the Southeast Asian nation. The European Union also called on all parties to respect freedom of navigation and overflight in the South China Sea. City. And at the summit, Malaysian Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob also warned against actions that could further complicate the situation and escalate tensions in the area.
A spokesperson for the Secretary General Stephanie Dujarric said the United Nations were deeply concerned by the intensification of arbitrary arrests in Myanmar and stressed that must this stop. Let's listen in.
We are deeply concerned by the intensification and arbitrary arrests in Myanmar, the targeting of members of the National League for Democracy, affiliates, and others promoting return to Myanmar's democratic path, and those exercising their most basic rights to peaceful assembly. These arbitrary arrests must stop. We also remain concerned over recent attacks on NLD officers and recall the Security Council's presidential statement of March of this year expressing concern over arbitrary detentions of members of government, including the president and state councilor. We are expressing our continued concern over this intensifying crackdown and treatment of detainees by the military, including increased reports of sexual violence. Credible reports indicate that at least 175 people have died while in custody since February of this year. That includes 50 deaths in custody reported since the beginning of October alone, and many of the bodies showed signs of mistreatment or torture. We reiterate our call for the release of all detainees and for the cessation of violence on all sides.
The Southeast Asian country has been in turmoil since the coup sparked massive protests and a bloody military crackdown on dissent, which has killed more than 1,200 people, according to a local monitoring group. The junta has stepped up arrests of dissidents in Yangon, which has been rocked by near-daily bomb blasts and shootings. An American journalist, Danny Fenster, jailed for 6 months by Myanmar's military rulers, returned to the United States on Tuesday, saying it felt incredible to be reunited with his family. Fenster was handed an 11-year sentence last week for incitement, unlawful association, and breaching visa rules. He was pardoned and freed on Monday, a day before he was to face terror and sedition charges that could have seen him jailed for life. More than 100 journalists have been arrested since the putsch, according to reporting Asean, a monitoring group. It says at least 30 are still in detention.
In other news, the new Mandalika motorcycle circuit on the Indonesian island of Lombok welcomes thousands of enthusiastic fans for the first superbike race in Indonesia. But dozens of families resist evictions at the heart of a project denounced by the UN after complaints for human rights violations. Let's listen in.
Dibuat terowongan, tapi jalan situ kita nggak bisa. Airnya besar. Lewat atas aspal dilarang sama Pak TNI, sama polisi, lain lagi security lagi.
Iya.
Jangan lewat karena kita kan cari menafkah di laut, petani nelayan kita kan.
Bapak
susah kalau lewat terowongan dihadang tadi saya. Terus saya tuh disuruh turun lalu duduk di sana diajak ngomong. Saya sedikit takut tadi.
Ke Bupati sampai saya ketemu di bandara sama Bupati pun tetap akan digusur karena ini untuk perlu masyarakat luas atau masyarakat umum. Oke, saya mendukung dengan atas sirkuit ini dibangun. Cuman tolong diselesaikan dulu. Cuman penyelesaian tidak ada sudah, tidak ada penyelesaian. Jadi untuk sampai saat ini saya mau lihat untuk sirkuit itu untuk melintaskan di lahan 3 itu, kolam ketiga.
Ya, bahwa ini sangat tidak etik ya, penyelenggaraan atau event internasional, sementara masih ada orang-orang yang terisolir di dalam sirkuit maupun di sekitar sirkuit, sementara Presiden turun dan ikut meresmikan di tengah penderitaan masyarakat setempat.
Of course, when they try to solve the problem, it takes time because there are some process dealing with land agencies. We talk with the police and also other stakeholders so that win-win situation can happen. And we are very optimistic win-win situation will be achieved, that the investor, which is ITDC, will be happy, and also the people or indigenous will be happy as well.
Several villages have been relocated voluntarily or by force for construction of the new Mandalika circuit, but around 40 families, along with their cattle and dogs, are still holding out in the center of the track despite intimidation to cede their land. Environmentalists also question the wisdom of hosting large-scale events on an island under threat from natural disasters. The superbike spectacle on the 4.3-kilometer circuit Sunday was a prelude to a MotoGP race, the top tier of the Motorcycle Grand Prix, to be held on the island on March 2022. The government hopes to create thousands of jobs and attract up to 2 million foreign tourists a year with the circuit complex, which covers more than 1,000 hectares bordered by white sand beaches. But the gleaming new project has been the subject of bitter conflict between authorities and local residents. Some hotels are deceiving overseas visitors by taking room reservations but omitting the transport from the airport and COVID testing, which means they now must buy a new package on arrival or be denied entry in Thailand. Here's Diomar Baldo to tell us more about this scam. Will you call it a scam? Hello, Diomar.
That is correct. Some hotels try to deceive upcoming visitors by reserving booking packages without the provisions of transport from the airport to the site of the COVID-19 testing, which means that they must get a new reservations upon arrival to the country or else they will be denied entry. This was reported by Apisamay Srirangson, the spokeswoman of the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration of Thailand. The charge does not include limousine service from the airport to the hotel or the RT-PCR coronavirus testing upon arrival, even though both are stipulated requirements on the Thailand Pass. The replacement of the previously mandatory certificate of entry that visitors seek upon entry to the kingdom. In the new scheme, visitors are required to be fully vaccinated with negative RT-PCR results within 72 hours before the departure flight and a health insurance amounting to $50,000, tantamount to 1.6 million baht. Further, they must have booked a limousine service from the airport to their accommodation or testing centers where they should be tested on the spot by the approved hospital staff. Additionally, some hotels resist giving back full refunds to visitors who subsequently canceled their room reservation to get the required package elsewhere. In an interview, Ms. Sringason added that some hotels had packages that included limousine and COVID-19 testing, but also allowed visitors to receive only the rooms and seek for the RT-PCR testing somewhere else. This shows that such hotels intentionally deceive the visitors. The travelers are urged to carefully review their reservation packages and counter-check the inclusions with the prescribed conditions of the Thailand's reopening policies. Travelers apply for a Thailand Pass, provide documentation, and receive the QR entry code or Thailand Pass ID by email, which is then used upon entering the kingdom. A traveler can apply for the Thailand Pass via the Foreign Ministry's web portal. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Jomerl, for that update. I hope they figure that out very soon and everything goes on smoothly. Thank you for your update.
Yes, thank you, Alma. Reporting live from EBC Thailand Bureau, I am Jomerl Bundad Baldo, and we live in interesting times.
A UN human rights expert today urged the U.S. to overhaul legislation to prevent increasing exclusion discrimination, and hate speech and crimes against minorities, saying the legal landscape for the protection of human rights is far from comprehensive or even at times coherent. Let's listen in.
There is the need for a new deal in the United States. And by new deal, what I was referring to is for comprehensive national human rights legislation to prevent the increasing exclusion, discrimination, and also attack hate speech and hate crimes against minorities or experienced by minorities. One of the observations is that there have been very significant and hard-won human rights gains made mainly during the civil rights movement in the 1960s, but that the U.S. stands out among democracies for its incomplete legislation for the recognition of human rights and for their protection. And one of the results of this is that minorities and indigenous peoples also are the most likely left behind in times such as these, particularly where we're seeing upheaval, uncertainty, and crisis linked to different phenomena. The end of mission statement highlights that millions of Americans, particularly minorities, are facing growing inequality, growing discrimination, and are facing dramatic increases in hate speech and hate crimes, as well as the challenges, disproportionate challenges and threats caused by environmental degradation and growing economic health and educational disparities that leaves a disproportionate segment of minorities of them behind.
Earlier April of this year, 6 women of Asian descent were killed when a shooter attacked 3 Asian-owned spas in Atlanta. Authorities are still weighing whether that attack should be prosecuted as a hate crime. The NYPD has stepped up its presence in neighborhoods with high Asian immigrant populations, while volunteer groups have formed safety patrols. Several demonstrations expressing solidarity with Asian American communities have also taken place.
In other news, back here in the country, 3 short-lived phreatomagmatic bursts were recorded in the Taal volcano in the past 24 hours. That is according to the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology. In its volcano bulletin, PHIVOC said the bursts occurred at 8:11 this morning, 8:17 in the evening, and 8:34 p.m. on Monday, lasting 1 minute to 5 minutes and producing plumes 200 meters or 1,500 meters tall. PHIVOC said these phreatomagmatic bursts were likely driven by fracturing and gas release from resting magma beneath the Taal volcano island, or the TVI. A total of 6 phreatomagmatic bursts were recorded since November 15, according to PHIVOC. Meanwhile, 30 volcanic earthquakes caused by movements or eruptions of magma from the volcano were also recorded in the past 24 hours. 23 volcanic tremors that lasted 2 minutes to 5 minutes, 4 low-frequency volcanic earthquakes, and 3 hybrid volcanic earthquakes. Now, hybrid earthquakes indicate rock fracturing and magma or fluid movement. Taal volcano remains under alert level 2, which means that sudden steam or gas-driven explosions, volcanic earthquakes, minor ashfall, and lethal accumulations or expulsions of volcanic gas can occur and threaten areas within and around the TVI. Entry into the island is strictly prohibited.
President Rodrigo Duterte on Monday said he ditched his plan to retire from politics after his term ends in June next year because there are still goals he wants to achieve. He did not elaborate what these goals are, but reiterated that there's always a time for everything. Let's listen in.
We are very happy that we were talking dito sa na may naiwan kami para sa tao. Pero yung adulation na yung pasalamat, wag na ho. Trabaho namin yan. yung pasalamat. Hindi naman kailangan yan kasi hindi naman pera ng gobyerno. Hindi naman kami ang nagpagod. Ang nagpagod yung gumawa nito mga trabahante. So para sa akin, sila yung dapat pasalamatan natin. There are just things which I have to do before retiring, but not really staying for something na it's no longer our time. Ang buhay, it's always a time for everything. A time to be great, a time to be small, a time to be a shining star, but a time to fade. And just maghanap ko na lang ng kanto kung saan kakasya. Ganon ang tingin namin sa buhay namin. Panahon-panahon ang mundo.
On October 2, Duterte announced that he will retire from politics. He, however, surprised many when he filed his candidacy for senator via a representative in the 2022 elections. His certificate of candidacy was filed by Representative Melchor Aranas during the last day of the filing of statements of withdrawal and substitution at the Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, in Intramuros, Manila on November 15. He substituted a certain Mona Lisa Visorde, who withdrew her certificate of candidacy for senator. Duterte, who chairs the ruling Partido Demokratiko Pilipino Lakas ng Bayan or PDP Laban, is running for senator under Federalismo ng Dugong Dakilang Samahan or PDDS, an allied party of the PDP Laban. The PDP Laban earlier planned to field Duterte as vice president with his longtime aide, Senator Christopher Bongo, as president. He later withdrew his vice presidential bid in consideration of public sentiment that his intent to seek the second top post violates the Constitution. He was referring to the June 23 to 26 polls conducted by the Social Weather Stations, or SWS, which showed that 60% of 1,200 adult Filipinos believed that his vice presidential run could violate the intention of the Constitution, which should be amended first before he may run for office again.
And staying here in the country, the Pakistan Navy's largest and most modern frigate, the PNS Tuggeril, or F-261, has arrived in Manila for a two-day goodwill visit. In a statement on Tuesday, Philippine Navy spokesperson Commander Benjo Negranza said the PNS Tuggeril arrived at Pier 15 at the Manila South Harbor on Monday afternoon for a goodwill visit until Wednesday. The PNS Tuggeril is the first of four type of 054A frigates ordered by the Pakistan Navy from the China State Shipbuilding Corp Limited. It was commissioned last November 8. Negranza also said the visit of PNS Tuggeril would be concluded with a send-off ceremony with customary passing exercises. No other physical interactions with their Filipino counterparts are scheduled in light of the existing safety biohazard protocols. And the news continues here on Asean in Focus. We'll be right back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Welcome back to the program. Expecting an influx of international arrivals in the country in the coming weeks, the Department of Health, or DOH, seeks to ensure implementation of strict border controls and close monitoring of COVID trends, including variants of interest and variants of concerns. Let's listen in.
Increasing case trends seen across Europe and North America, these countries have loosened restrictions and minimum public health standard requirements as early as June of this year in lieu of their high vaccination coverage. Historically, case increases in Asia and the Philippines occur a few months after peaks in Western countries. Close monitoring of other country experiences and variants of interest and variants of concerns, and ensuring border control as influx of international arrivals expected in the coming weeks. Minimum public health standards adherence must be strengthened as we increase mobility to ensure the risk of transmission remains low here in our country. Of this, 1.98% were positive for the Alpha variant, 3.56% were positive for the Beta variant, and 84.19% were positive for the Delta variant. Also, of the total sequence samples, incoming international travelers comprised of 1,179 or 5.73%. We are doing retrospective sampling to trace the beginnings of the Delta variant, introduction to the country, as well as the earliest cases.
Harris said that local government units and business establishments must also ensure proper implementation of minimum public health standards and safety seal standards, especially in areas where 3Cs, closed spaces, crowded places, and close contact settings will most likely be present. The DOH on Monday said that 93.49% of those who died from COVID-19 were not fully vaccinated. With this, Verheri stressed that vaccination will be the key to reduce the number of deaths.
9 months after the February 20 community event, COVID-19 in Cambodia has been brought under control and the country is fully reopening in almost all of its sectors. The Ministry of Health spokesman Hock Kim Cheng said on November 21 that the country has reopened almost all sectors and schools let students access their education. Tourism is also crucial to help the country recover its economy. However, he said Cambodia cannot afford to relax the preventive measures that they have adapted against the virus. According to Dr. Lee Ai Lan, World Health Organization representative in Cambodia, the country has not only achieved high overall vaccination coverage, but vulnerable groups such as healthcare workers, the elderly, those with chronic conditions, and pregnant women are being protected via vaccination. However, the WHO representative noted that the pandemic is not yet over. Tourism Minister Thong Kon said Cambodia is ready to welcome international visitors fully vaccinated against COVID-19 based on the good tourist movement management during the Water Festival holiday, which was marked by November 18 to 20, the Cambodia National News Agency reported on November 21. He also emphasized that this is a key prerequisite for receiving vaccinated international tourists with safety.
To Vietnam now, over 27,000 ninth grade students of 17 districts with low risk of COVID-19 headed back to schools on November 22nd. Earlier, only ninth graders at another district of Bavi were allowed to return to schools from November 8th. The remaining grades and students from the inner city will continue learning online. Kindergartens will remain closed too. Schools are required to meet the safety requirements issued by the Municipal Department of Education and Training and the Department of Health. They must make plans to ensure the distance between students and the number of students in each class. Teachers who have not received 2 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine are not allowed to teach in-person classes. The city's steering committee for COVID-19 prevention and control will suspend in-person learning if the number of infection cases rises to ensure the safety of students and teachers. The municipal authorities also require schools not to serve meals at school, only teaching 1 session a day in combination with online teaching.
The government on Monday officially rolled out the first phase of additional and booster shots administration to senior citizens and immunocompromised individuals. The provision of additional doses will benefit about 8.2 million elderly, 8.4 million adults with comorbidities. Let's listen in.
Kapag lalo na kung ikaw ay senior, kaya nga ngayon, booster natin ng mga seniors. Kasi nga, pagka naramdaman na nila, huli na ang panahon. Baka nasa ICU na sila or ICU no more.
Mas marami nakakaramdam ng side effects pag iba ang itinurok sa kanila at third time. So kung may mga contraindications sila, kunwari may allergy, homologous na lang po sila, yung the same na nakuha nila.
Based on experiences sa abroad at saka yung current data show that there is increasing evidence to show that it is beneficial also to use a different platform from the previous one that was given to you.
We have enough doses of various brand. Sa aming pong talaan, umaabot po ng 6 to 8 million po ang inallocate po natin sa mga senior citizens and also with comorbidities.
Last week, the government started the administration of booster shots for at least 1.6 million healthcare workers and targets to inoculate all eligible medical frontliners by the end of November. Local government units have not yet released guidelines for the administration of additional shots of the A2 and A3 categories, but the DOH said the vaccines can go to any inoculation site anytime and present their vaccination cards or certificates. According to the DOH, those given Sinovac, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and Moderna as primary doses as first and second vaccine doses should be given a booster at least 6 months after the second primary dose. Homologous boosters can be used, meaning the same vaccine brand or type will be administered. In case of the heterologous boosters, those who received Sinovac primary doses can receive any of these 3 vaccines as a booster shot, namely AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and Moderna. And those who received AstraZeneca as first and second dose could receive either Pfizer or Moderna as heterologous booster dose. Meanwhile, individuals who received the Gamaleya Sputnik as first and second dose can receive any of these 3 vaccines as booster dose, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and Moderna. And this would be administered 6 months after the primary dose. A homologous booster for Sputnik is not yet for implementation.
We have enough doses of various.
Efforts to reform global pandemic preparedness and response are happening too slowly. The World Health Organization's independent panel for pandemic preparedness and response said on Monday. In a new report, former premiers of New Zealand and Liberia, Helen Clark and Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, warned that COVID-19 has continued to cause illness, deaths, and economic losses, thanks to uneven progress in tackling infections. Among their recommendations, the panel called for heads of state and government to make faster progress, especially at the UN General Assembly. A new leader-led Global Health Threats Council should also be launched to provide much-needed leadership and accountability, the independent panel said. Much of the groundwork for reforms has been done, it noted, adding that it was imperative to end this pandemic and prepare for the next global health threat.
Norwegian telecoms operator Telenor said Monday that it has agreed to merge its Thai mobile unit with a local rival in a bid to create a major new player on the market. Telenor and Thai conglomerate Carrion Pokphand or CP said they plan to combine their respective mobile units DTAC and True in a so-called merger of equals that will create a new company with 55 million subscribers and combined sales of nearly $7 billion. DNB Markets economist Ole Andreas Kron said there were still obstacles in the road before the deal can see the light of day. Telenor, which owns 65% of DTAC, will have to convince minority shareholders of the interest of such a merger. Competition authorities may also object to the plan, as the tie-up would, in practice, leave only 2 operators on the Thai mobile phone market, he said. The new group would focus on new technology, CP said in a separate statement. It said the new venture will focus on the development of tech-based businesses, creating a digital ecosystem, and establishing a startup investment fund.
Employment opportunities await pandemic-displaced overseas Filipino workers and job seekers amid the reopening of economy at the United Arab Emirates or UAE, the Labor Department shared in a news release on Sunday. More than 600 OFWs formerly employed by Dubai duty-free shops will be rehired, said Labor Attaché John Rio Bautista of the Philippine Overseas Labor Office or POLO in Dubai. Aside from opportunities in the retail sector, Bautista said the health sector also expressed interest to hire Filipino professionals. Meanwhile, over 8,000 job orders for household service workers or HSWS have been verified by Polo since early April, and around 6,000 to 7,000 of them have already arrived in Dubai. Bautista said the initial implementation of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Philippines and UAE is really fruitful. The benefits for our HSWS, as instructed by the President Duterte, is stated in the Comprehensive Employment Contract. For instance, the provision of the minimum wage amounting to 1,500 dirhams, and 1 dirham is about 13.75 pesos. Since the implementation of the accord, distressed Filipinos housed at the Polo shelter have also dwindled to an average of 10. The Labor Department reminded overseas job seekers to go through the proper process and to visit the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration's website to verify the legitimacy of job offers.
Staying in Manila, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Benjamin Diokno highlighted the need to further boost Filipinos' financial literacy, especially now that digital transactions have increased, noting that not only is it advantageous to individuals, but also to the economy. In his speech during the opening of the 5-day virtual 4th Financial Education Stakeholders Expo on Monday, Mr. Diokno said the central bank and its partners in the private sector aim to proactively supplement traditional financial literacy programs with digital skills building to improve financial resilience. Take a look.
This year's FINED Expo theme is Financial Literacy as Critical Enabler for Personal and National Economic Resiliency. This reflects our shared mission to rebuild and push for a stronger economy. A World Bank survey shows that Filipino adults were able to correctly answer only 3 out of 7 financial literacy questions. Filipinos lag behind other countries in similar surveys, scoring low marks in inflation, interest computation, and simple division. Poor performance in financial literacy surveys is echoed by data on how Filipinos use financial services. 5 in 10 adults who save keep their savings at home. Among Filipinos with outstanding loans, 5 in 10 obtain credit from informal moneylenders. This makes them more vulnerable to onerous lending schemes. 1 in every 100 Filipinos have been victimized by investment scammers, amounting to a total loss of over 25 billion pesos. To address these gaps, the BSP implements a 3-part approach to develop resilience-building financial habits. First, we develop strategic FinEd partnerships and execute capacity-building programs with institutional partners to embed financial literacy sessions in regular training programs. Second, we make digital literacy more accessible through targeted information campaigns that promote responsible use of digital financial services. Third, we develop targeted content in various formats and simplify financial literacy and economic concepts to benefit our priority target audiences: learners, teachers, civil servants, overseas Filipino workers, MSMEs, uniformed personnel, small farmers and fisherfolk, and the unbanked. Our partner, the Department of Education, issued a financial education policy through DepEd Order Number 22 on 3 June 2021. As a regulator, our responsibility is to support the development of adequate, safe, and accessible digital payment streams, digital financial infrastructures, and digital literacy programs for consumers.
The Measurable Action for Haze-Free Southeast Asia is a joint initiative between the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or Asean Secretariat, and the International Fund for Agricultural Development. It aims to create a flexible regional coordination platform for engaging all relevant actors, building capacity, harmonizing programs and projects, and facilitating multiple sources of finance for promoting haze-free farming and sustainable management of peatlands. Let's watch this.
2002, the governments of the 10 ASEAN member states signed the ASEAN Agreement on Transboundary Haze Pollution. Under the AATHP, ASEAN member states established regional cooperative mechanisms through the Conference of the Parties to the ASEAN Agreement on Transboundary Haze Pollution, the committees under COP, the sub-regional ministerial steering committees on transboundary haze pollution, the technical working groups on transboundary haze pollution. The implementation of the AATHP highlights a rule-based ASEAN that will continue to strengthen its mechanism for cooperation, dialogue, information sharing, and mobilizations of technical and financial resources to address transboundary haze in the regions. The Measurable Action for Haze-Free Sustainable Land Management in Southeast Asia, or MAFSA, will be implemented as a joint initiative between the ASEAN Secretariat and IFAD, together with GEC and C4.
This project aims to strengthen ASEAN regional coordination, capacity and partnerships for data and information management, and to mobilize an estimated 1.5 billion 10-year investment framework to advance sustainable land management and haze prevention activities. The project is helping bring together a strategic partnership between key peatland and haze actors in Southeast Asia, such as the EU, GEF, GIZ, IUCN, government agencies, research institutions, development partners, the private sector, and local communities. Together, these initiatives are playing a catalytic role in making significant improvements in haze elimination and sustainable peatland management and rehabilitation. This shows how working together through multi-stakeholder partnerships can really make a difference. Keeping the momentum generated at the COP and capitalising on ongoing commitments demonstrated by all ASEAN countries and peatland partners will be essential for knowledge sharing and South-South cooperation between ASEAN and other peatland countries in the world to facilitate immediate action on the ground. Once again, I wish to reiterate that IFAD is committed to working together for sustainably managing peatlands, rehabilitating them, and tackling forest and land fires for a haze-free ASEAN and beyond, given the important role these ecosystems play in climate adaptation and mitigation.
A key outcome of the program is to enhance the availability and usage of knowledge products, including information, data collection and analysis, and interpretation of fire and haze aspects. And these include products such as early warning systems, prevention messaging, mitigation techniques, and resource sharing, and finally, impact assessments of fire and haze conditions.
The MAFSA program has supported the capacity development, needs and gap analysis for ASEAN member states and is further enhancing capacity and technical skills of ASEAN member states through training and workshops. The program is also assisting to develop or improve the results management systems of the ASEAN member states related to peatland management and haze monitoring. The program will also help establish a 10-year investment framework to support the ASEAN member states in priority focal areas to improve land management, prevent peat and land fires, and thus to enhance the regional environment of Southeast Asia.
Thank you, Chriselle, for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Almight. Felt good to be back in the program. And that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. Thank you for joining us today here in ASEAN in Focus. Again, I am Chriselle Mapa of PBC Thailand Bureau. We'll live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place, here on ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.